Here's what's coming up in episode 186, Valli, Maine.
My dad doesn't like it and he calls it my wailing. And he's like, oh, God, Judy's doing her wailing again. And
what?
He hates it. And I had a life review. Basically, they showed me like all of my whole life and all the things that I'd done wrong. And I basically got in trouble.
Wow.
Yeah. And they just said, you didn't come here to do this. That it's important to come back to yourself. Remember why you came here. To come back to love.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the Seance.
Welcome back to the Parlor, everybody. I hope we are all safe and well wherever you may be listening. I'm really excited for you to hear this episode with vocal artist and sound healer Valli Maine. And I'm even more excited to tell you that at the very end of the episode, Valli has granted me permission to play a channeled song from her new album, Lucent. And I'm telling you, you do want to hear this voice. I also have a minor trigger warning that some listeners might want to know before jumping in today. Our conversation is beautiful, but a small amount of it covers the topics of abuse and drug and alcohol addiction. So here we go. Pour the tea. Recently, a Paranerd listener posted a fascinating video in the Big Seance Parlor Facebook group, and it was a video of a beautiful young woman sitting on the floor in front of a microphone in what looks like a living room, and she very quietly introduced herself and said she was going to share what she referred to as channeled vocal toning. So, my ears perked up when I heard that, not only because it was something that was channeled, but also because in my other life, I am a music nerd and a music teacher. And I was like, shut up. We are doing this. So I listened. It was the most beautiful thing. It was relaxing. It was this dreamy music, and it immediately made me drift back to the film score for The Passion of the Christ from 2004, which I used to listen to about that time. I used to listen to it a lot. It's a beautiful soundtrack. And I tracked this woman down that same day, and here we are. And so I want to thank Nikki for bringing Valli Maine to my attention so that we can have her here today. So her name is Valli Maine, and I want you to know, and she wants you to know, that she in her real life goes by Judy, but her artist name is Valli. And because we're going to talk a lot about what she does and her artistry, and she's got some albums, we decided we would go with Valli Maine today. So here's Valli's bio. Valli Maine grew up in a musical household in central Victoria, blessed with a musician as her mother who loved to sing and was passionate about fostering creativity in children, a trait passed on to her by her own beautiful mother. Valli was always a songwriter, but started intentionally writing songs somewhere between the age of 15 and 17 and playing them to her friends in the park at school. She performed at an open mic night when she was 18, and this led to her being offered a gig, which led to more gigs, and the ripple effect continued on like that. Valli has had the pleasure of supporting Paul Kelly, Augie March, Fallow, I hope I'm saying some of these right, Tex Perkins, Tim Rogers, and many other wonderful musicians. She considers herself quite blessed. Valli took a break from music in 2015 when she was pregnant with her son. Coupling this with her understanding of tones and vibration, that everything is energy, she used this time to get clear about what kind of energy she wanted to send out with her music, what she truly wants to create with her creations. Valli Maine plays her own style of dreamy melodic folk with songs written to call in the dreams that she's been painting in her mind. I love that. Shut up. With songs to give your heart hope on the days when the world weighs a bit too heavy. Her intention is to send out a message of love, beauty, and wonder for this life. She has 3 albums, including a new album named Lucent. Valli is also qualified in crystal healing, Reiki, and is a practitioner and teacher of Theta healing, which I can't wait to hear about. She works intimately with sound healing and channeled vocal toning and has 5 years experience working with clients in this field. This is one of her true loves in this life. You can learn more about Valli Maine at vallimaine.com, and that's VALLIMAINE.com. Valli, welcome to our parlor here.
Hi, thanks for having me and for that beautiful introduction.
Oh, you're so welcome. We are so excited to have you, and it's not very often that I get to have someone, as we said before we started recording, someone who fits into both of my nerdy worlds. Like, this is all of my passions kind of colliding with each other, and that doesn't often happen. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I was trying not to laugh during your introduction because I just love your mannerisms, and you remind me of one of my friends, Callan, and he's hilarious.
Really? Well,
yeah.
Maybe we should meet sometime and have a mannerism off or something. Have some kind of competition. So I first have to ask, because this is what I saw in the video. I'm going to link this video in the show notes because it's the first thing that I saw. It's what made me invite you here, and it is absolutely beautiful. And then once you check out your albums, you realize your albums is just more of this beautiful art that you perform. But tell me how you realized that you could do channeled vocal toning, and then just what is channeled vocal toning? I had never heard of it.
I hadn't either. It's something that just always had come through, like since I was little, and I was always shy about it and would just mainly stick to singing to the plants in my garden, or like animals or the sky. And it didn't happen in front of a person really until I was pregnant with my son, because up until then too, my dad doesn't like it and he calls it my wailing, and he's like, oh God, Judy's doing her wailing again. And
what?
He hates it. And so it happened in front of a friend of mine. And when I finished, like when I opened my eyes, I was scared that she was going to like think it was weird, and she was crying. And she was like, oh, honey, do you know what that is? And I was like, oh, no, it's just like something that's always happened. And she stayed at my house for the next 3 days and helped explain it to me and help make sense about a few things. And then I started working with clients, or like once I decided, I was like, right, okay, so this is like what I want to do. And I was scared about it at first because I thought that people would hate it. And then I've just had such a beautiful response. And I said to my dad, I was like, so it turns out that people like it. And he's like, oh, they're probably just being kind.
Well, first of all, let's all collectively smack your dad's hand right now because, oh my gosh, what is wrong with him?
He just doesn't like it. He said it makes him like feel angry, like makes his soul feel angry. But he might be coming around. I don't know.
Well, he'd better. Oh my gosh, I don't even comprehend that. I do not comprehend that at all. But I will get over my weirdness about your father's opinion of your voice right now. We'll move on from that.
I love my dad, by the way. My dad's hilarious. Like, we get along really well.
I'm sure your dad is super fabulous. Yeah. Love to your dad.
Yeah.
even though he's weird. So when did you realize that what was coming to you and coming through you was channeled? Was it that moment that someone talked to you and told you? How did you know?
Yeah, I guess it was really my friend explaining it to me, because before that, it's like it's something that's always come through, and I could feel when it was going to happen. I get this certain feeling over my body, and then I don't really have much control over it. It just, the sounds have to come out, and it would often happen in nature. But I never really thought much about it. I was just sometimes would feel a little bit scared. Like, not because it feels like a bad thing or anything. Like, when it's happening, it's just the most blissful feeling. I was more just scared about people hearing it.
So is it always, because I imagine it's very emotional, and I imagine you experience like a range of emotions as you're channeling these things, but is it always comfortable?
No, sometimes it can be quite uncomfortable, like the severity that it comes out at. Like, there was a time, so this was after my friend had explained it to me, and I was like, okay, so it's okay for this to happen in front of people. And I was hiking with a girlfriend, and we got to this one spot, and I could feel the tones coming. I was like, all right, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to make the tones. And it was so intense that it just took over my whole body, and like I couldn't really stand up straight. And my friend was like, Judy, if you can manage to look up. And I looked up, and there were 6 eagles flying in from like different directions, and they came to the top of us and started circling above us. And as the tones got higher, they went higher, and as it ended, they like disappeared above the clouds and then were gone. But there's been a couple of experiences like that where it's been so intense that I almost felt like my body might tear open, but I was fine. And yeah, it's just like sometimes needs to come out. So it's not always comfortable. There's times when it's like really soothing and relaxing, and times when it's quite piercing. Like, I felt sorry for anyone else who might have been out walking in the bush that day.
Well, that helps me understand it. It really does. Have you ever spoken with like psychics and mediums and compared like how it feels when you start receiving these things? And is it similar to, or you might even refer to yourself as a psychic medium? I haven't asked you. I don't know. But how does it compare to those things, you think?
My friend, so the friend that it happened in front of, it's something that actually happens to her as well. And I just never knew. Like, she keeps it pretty quiet. And yeah, very similar, like same. It sounded like almost like the exact same thing.
And so now as a performer, I'm wondering if it is frustrating, because sometimes it seems like a performer has to just perform at the drop of a hat. Just, when it comes time for the concert or for the performance or for the recording, Is it difficult to get in that space? Does it not happen until, it wants to happen? How does that work?
It depends with the kind of performance that I'm doing. So I do like a folk, like play acoustic folk music. And so for that, that's always completely different.
Not channeled, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in a way that, because my songs do just come to me. Like I've had like songs that I've started writing in a dream and then finish them off in real life and that kind of thing. So they just like pop into my head and I'll write them down. But if I was doing the performance, like what I did in that Facebook Live, that's one where like I'll intentionally connect and then flow through. But I haven't done that on a stage yet. But I plan on doing that one day, but I've just got to push through the fear around that.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story, and this is so like not anything as cool as what you've experienced. But I had a dream, this crazy dream. And before I was a podcaster, when I was blogging, I blogged about it. I had a dream that I was somewhere. I envisioned like the Oregon coast in the US and like, you know, the ocean just kind of crashing up on the rocks and everything. And I was kind of like a camera for a movie. Like I was behind a camera so I could see this whole scape in front of me. And there was a dinosaur ice skating on the frozen water out in the ocean. And while I was watching this dinosaur ice skating, it was beautiful. And like, it was completely normal in my dream. Like, oh, look, isn't that neat? And I heard this beautiful song in my head that was like the soundtrack for what I was seeing. And I woke up with that song in my head and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Now, I used to be a music composition major. I am still kicking myself for not either humming it into a recorder or writing it down or something, because where did that come from? And, you know, now I'm always asking myself, did that song exist? And I just happened to be singing it in my dream. Was it sent down from somewhere? Did some dinosaur give me this beautiful melody? And that's what that made me think of. So I'm sorry, I ruined your beautiful moment with my dinosaur dream.
I love that. Thanks for telling me. How cool is that? Yeah, you do have to like write them down straight away. I have never had a dinosaur ice skating in my dream, but like the same thing, I'll think, oh, I'll definitely remember that. And if you don't do it at the time, you don't remember it at all.
So do you always have a recorder with you at all times then? So whenever it happens, you just click it?
I often do. I'll record a lot of it on my phone these days, but before I had a smartphone, I had a little dictaphone that I'd walk around with and just take notes.
Yeah, I guess it is 2021 now, Keller. So you just pick up your phone and you just record
it. I want to get some kind of thing set up in the shower to record the songs that come out of in the shower.
You could carry around some big like reel-to-reel recorder thing, you know. I'm such a dork. So tell us what theta healing and sound healing are.
Okay. So the sound healing, the way that I do it, I have crystal bowls, which I use as well, and then just the channeled vocal toning. And from what I understand about it is it helps to penetrate like every cell of the body. There's nowhere where it can't go because it's sound. It just moves through and then retunes anything that might be out of alignment. So it's just like how you would tune your guitar. It tunes your body. And I think it can do a lot more than that. But I feel like in a session, like when I have a one-on-one session with someone, if I was to just try and consciously verbalize it, that it would take away from the experience. Like, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Like, I like to just let the sounds do their thing and not make out that I know exactly what's happening.
And so the sounds that you choose and like the bowls that you choose, the pitches and the tones that you choose, how do you determine, you know, which ones to use or what tones and sounds a person actually needs?
If I'm channeling it, the tones just specifically come through. Like, I have no control over what sounds to make. They just always specifically come through for that moment.
So that itself is channeled then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when I'm using the bowls, my hands just do the work. Like I feel like I'm only partially there when I'm doing sessions. I'm never thinking like, oh, what will I do next? It's just always flows. I get out of the way.
Yeah. What kind of responses do you get from your clients who have had sound healing or theta healing? What do they say?
Oh, I get some really beautiful messages of people saying how calming they found it, and the songs. Like often they'll say that the songs felt like a message from home, or like a cuddle from home, or like home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Valli just put quotes up when she's at home, by the way.
And so they might come in feeling pretty stressed and then leave just completely relaxed. And so often have to get people to ground a fair bit beforehand. But I used to do sound healings at a shop in Daylesford, and my old boss said she came up and was just laughing one day. I'm like, what? And she's like, did you see how stressed that man was when he came in? I was like, no, I didn't notice. And she's like, he was so grumpy in the shop. And then he walked out like saying goodbye to everyone and he was like, have a nice day.
Oh!
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so the consistent thing is that it's just really relaxing, helps people just come back to themselves.
Yeah. I am curious to know if you think that this ability, because as I'm sure you probably believe that people grow and people can practice their talents and their abilities and go even further. Do you feel like there's another journey with this? Do you feel like you would ever channel other things or channel messages like verbal messages, or what's next coming down the line? Do you have a feeling?
Yeah. I don't know if I would ever go with like channeling verbal messages. I definitely feel like the music is my path, but definitely like becoming more confident in myself and really like honing my ability to show up in the way that I want to show up in the world instead of just hiding, because I've had this like done a lot of hiding
Yeah.
in my life. And up until a certain point, I really wasn't fit to be in the public eye. I used to be like, I used to perform a lot, and this was before I had my 5-year break. But I actually was an alcoholic and a drug addict from the age of 11. From childhood trauma, I had like some severe traumas. I also had a beautiful childhood, but then just a few things, like I was molested when I was a kid. And from the age of 11, I just started drinking and smoking a lot of weed and got heavily into that. Like I probably should be dead with the amount that I would do. And then it got to the age of, I think I was 23 when everything just finally spiraled out of control, and I ended up in the psych ward and was heavily medicated for a few years and had to do a complete life evaluation, and that decided that I needed to face the trauma that I'd been suppressing. And so I spent like a few years really diving into that and learning how to live being sober, because I didn't even know how to talk to anyone. It took me like a year to be able to just say, hi, oh, I'm good, thanks, how are you? Without being nervous. Like I was just constantly off my face. So yeah, I just had to learn how to speak and then reparent myself in a way and be like, okay, Judy, like what kind of person do you want to be? Because I know inside me that I have this potential to do something, but the way that I wasn't going to be the person that I came here to be. And actually had an intervention, or as I was mentioning to you before we started, where I was in a paddock and I was at a friend's party and all these spaceships came down. It sounds crazy, like it sounds ridiculous, but I knew they were coming because I'd been receiving messages for months, and I just had a feeling that they were going to be at this party. And I was like, okay, I'll meet you in the paddock. And I was watching the sky, and it happened. And there were like all these different things that at first looked like stars. They lit up really bright and then started to lower down, and then they all lowered in the paddock. And there was two beings they were all different races. There was like two of each, and they came, and we had this communication. I ended up being like needing to sit down, and then I couldn't talk, but we communicated telepathically. And I had a life review. Basically, they showed me like all of my whole life and all the things that I'd done wrong. And I basically got in trouble. And
wow.
yeah. And they just said, you didn't come here to do this. Like, this isn't why you came here. And then I was like told to like clean my life up, basically. And so that was the real catalyst to sort myself.
That was the intervention.
Yeah. And they held up they had some little balls of light. I don't know how much I meant to share of the experience because it was pretty sacred. I don't often talk about it, but they just held these little balls and they said, we want to make sure that our children are going to be safe with you. And so then I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, really beautiful. And my son, from like the age of like 1.5 or 2, when he could start telling me, he'd be like, they came through my wall, Mummy, and then they took me in the car. We went for a drive. And I was like, where'd you go? And he was like, to Daddy's house. And I don't know what, like, because me and his father are separated. And I think at the time he really only knew like it's either at Mum's place or Dad's house. And so that's how he knew to describe it. But he's spoken about like when because similar to the channeling, I also get a feeling when I'm going to be visited. And I was vacuuming one night and Spency was having a little bath in the sink. And I could feel that they were in the house. And I was like, oh, they're not here to see me. I'll just keep vacuuming quickly. And when I finished vacuuming, he was like, Mummy, I want the blue animal to come back. I was like, what animal? He's like, the blue cat lady. She was just out there. And he pointed out the window. But the window that he is at is like 3 or 4 meters above the ground. So, yeah, it wasn't just someone standing outside the window.
Your son is going to have so many cool experiences because he has a mother who is open to receiving those experiences.
Yeah. And I've always been make sure like, what I want him to feel safe to be able to talk to me. And so I just listen.
Well, first of all, holy wow. I didn't know of any of those challenges and the traumatic experiences that you have had, and you are nothing but this beautiful soul in front of me, and your singing blows my mind, and then I don't even expect at all to hear what you just told me. Do you think that it seems to me like this ability that you have has it always been like a way to cope, I guess, with challenges, or is it, I don't know, do you see them connected at all?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I've always found myself to be a little bit detached from the world, if that makes sense. Like yeah. I've always found it really easy to connect to nature and animals, and like little white animals would just follow me home, and Dad'd be like, oh, Judy's got a rabbit. Like, it would just come and hang out with me. And I've always felt a lot of comfort in the music and in the tones. And so it helped me to feel like I wasn't alone. And it's only really been in the last 3.5 years or so since I've started Theta healing that I really feel comfortable on earth and feel like I belong here. It's like, I am meant to be here.
Well, first of all, good for you for making it through all of that and getting to the intervention and then changing things for yourself. I mean, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
I mean, I know that lots of things are probably still a challenge in like any kind of addiction, or I'm sure you have to kind of really work at that.
Oh, yeah. There's only been a couple of times since that I nearly relapsed, and it was when I was having like some specific trauma related to the molestation come up. I had like something happen, and I felt like drinking then. And then I realized, I was like, oh, that's specific. Like it made things make sense in my mind. And then I was able to clear it out with Theta healing. But besides that, I find it so easy to be sober now. Like the thought of having a drink or doing drugs or something just is not appealing to me at all. I love being sober actually, and just have so much more fun now, like genuine fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You started talking about Theta healing and I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's a little bit tricky to encompass down into a thing to explain, because I feel like 50 people could explain what Theta healing is to them, and we would all have a different account.
Mm-hmm.
And people will often say to me beforehand, I'll like explain to them before a session what's going to happen. And then after the session, they're like, okay, so you could never have explained to me what that was actually going to be like. It's something that like you really need to experience to fully grasp. And even then it's still different for everyone. But basically I'm just going to ask things. So it's kind of like a meditation practice where you go into a theta wave, which is the brain wave just before falling asleep. And then from that theta brainwave, you'll do like a talking therapy. So you'll start off with an issue that you have. It might be like a relationship issue or trauma or any kind of difficulty that you're having. And you'll go into the theta brainwave and then start asking like where did that begin, or where was the first time that this happened? And you end up starting off with the tip of the iceberg and then going down right into the depths of it. And you find out what beliefs you made at that time when it was happening and like what you were learning from it. And then you're able to reprogram the neural pathways in the brain on the spot. And it's amazing. Like the feeling that you get after it is, it's hard to describe, but for me, it's like liberation. And the first time that I ever had a session with my teacher, I left feeling like, wow, I think this is the first time I've actually ever been in my body. Or for a long time, I felt like I was coming home to myself. And then the more and more that I went into it, it feels like that I'm unfolding, or that the real me is actually able to start coming through because I'm getting rid of the trauma and the layers and all of those things. And so I initially started it to just work on my own things. And I still see my teacher once a fortnight because I'm all about doing that. Like
like therapy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I'm very committed to it for myself. But then I started studying it, and then people just naturally started coming to me as well. And so I love being able to do it for other people too and share.
It seems a little bit like hypnosis.
It is very similar to a hypnosis because you also go into the theta brainwave as well with that. So it's quite similar to hypnosis, but then the difference is that theta healing is like, it encompasses everything. So like it really helps to foster your connection with like creator or like the source, and also like an understanding of the different planes of existence. So like it just incorporates everything into the one thing. I'm not really sure how to explain it because it's like it takes days to teach the basic class and like the things that I'm trying to explain, but it just helps to make sense of like where you are in the grand scheme of things.
Is a person conscious when they're going through? Is that the big difference between the hypnosis then and theta healing? Is that you're not like completely tuned out while you're having it?
Yeah, you can remember everything afterwards. But you also can go into past lives and things like that.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And often And you can see, like, when you get back down, when you find the bottom belief and the bottom issue, and you can look forward in your life and go, oh, did you hear that? Ivy just growled at me for waking her up.
Rude.
She just sat up and looked at me and went,
I have to pause and tell everybody listening that Valli had to step away for a few minutes right before we started recording, and her phone was down on the ground, and I had just heard Ivy barking at the postman a few minutes earlier. So I'd already met Ivy. And when Valli stepped away, Ivy came right up to the phone, right above the phone, and like looked down at me at the camera and then walked off. And I was like, oh, hi, Ivy. We had our little meeting moment.
Yeah.
She said, take care of my mama, is what she said.
Yeah, we're unhealthily obsessed with each other. She's my best friend.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
If anyone would like a more clear description of what theta healing or sound healing is, they could just look on my website, because I have a page specifically about the sound healing and also about the theta healing, which would be much more easy to understand than what I said.
I'm curious, like, listening to your music, whether it be your albums or your channeled toning, coming from a person who is formally trained in music performance and music education, have you had formal training? Because when I hear, what comes out of your mouth, I cannot imagine that not being some kind of formal training.
Thank you. And no, I haven't.
None.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. My mum is a guitar teacher, and like when I was a kid, she showed me some basic chords like G and D and C and A. And so I know like those very basic things, but then I find it hard to remember what they are. For some reason, music theory just doesn't stick in my head. And people have tried. They're like, it's easy. This is blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, you lost me. Like, I can't remember it. And so I just think maybe I'm not meant to.
Well, and it's, a lot of times vocalists don't relate what they do to physical instruments, because, a physical instrument, you have a key or a string or a button, and your voice just seems to magically do it most of the time. I don't understand guitar. So I've been a piano person my whole life. And so when I had to take guitar lessons, I wanted to toss it out the window. I could not stand it. I couldn't figure it out. It didn't resonate with me. I was like, ugh. So I wouldn't have been able to figure out guitar either.
Yeah, I play guitar and piano, but like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I just listen to it and muck around and see what comes out.
That's awesome. And so let's now talk about the albums. When did you find the confidence to say, okay, we are going to make an album?
So before like using the name Valli Maine for music, I used to use just like a different name. But then when I got sober and as I like had my big life evaluation, I was like, okay, I don't want to carry that forward. And so I really changed what I wrote about and became more intentional in my lyrics. And so when I made the Garden of Valli, I made it with the intention of calling in the life that I want. Like for me, it's a physical, like it's helping to, like it's my dreams basically in an album. And I wanted to be able to help call that in. And the lyrics are mainly really positive. There's one song on there, like an older song that is a bit sad, but I put that on there for my friend who passed away and it was her favorite song. And so I just wanted to have an acknowledgement of her. So it was basically that. It was just going like, okay, I want to create this thing that's going to help create the life that I want. And I wanted it to be something beautiful that people would listen to and it would help their hearts feel happier. And a lot of my songs, I write them for my partner that I know is coming. And so inside the actual like physical copy of the Garden of Valli, it has written, to the man of my songs, I sing for you always. And that came about from when I was 18. I had a dream, and in the dream, I was living in this little valley, and I was a teacher in a school, in this like one-room bluestone school, and I had this partner, and a bushfire came, and I stayed with the kids to make sure the kids were okay, and he was out in the forest, and he died. And I felt when he died, and after I knew the kids were safe, I ran out to go and find him, and he came, and he was standing in front of me, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll come back and find you." And then he started spinning, and he turned into a rabbit and hopped around me 3 times and ran away. So I've spent like the last 13 or 14 years deciphering different things about what I think it means. But I know that he's going to come and find me. And yeah, I spent 3 days in bed crying after that dream because it felt so real, and I just missed this person. And then, so basically all of my love songs have been written when I'm single and I'm just singing for him. And I thought maybe one day, like, if it might help to call him to me, but I don't want any weird people to stalk me. I just
So this isn't a dating show, basically.
Don't reach out.
We're not going to give contact information or anything like that.
Yeah. I just wanted to share my love story.
Oh, I love that though. I would love to, God, speaking of weird people, I was just going to say, I would love to spend a day in your head, like in your dreams and all that, because it's just, how beautiful is that? It's so touching, that dream that you just shared, and so much different than a dinosaur ice skating on, on the ocean. Oh gosh. I let my listeners in my Facebook group know about 24 hours ago that I was going to be interviewing you, and posted your website.
Okay.
And Sherry in the group, and you've kind of answered this a little bit, but Sherry says, are there different sound vibrations for different types of healing? And then she says, like, specific diagnoses. Does the channeling determine kind of how to deal with different, problems someone has, or how does that work?
Yeah. So it really is, it's not something that I have control over, like I said, but if someone had a specific thing going on, then the tones that come through would be specific for that. Like how if you have a virus, you can get the specific tone that would change the virus into a harmless state.
To close up our conversation, I would love to know if you could send a message to the entire world, what would you say? No pressure or anything.
I'm just asking. Yeah.
Take your time.
I would say that during these times when all the external noise can get quite loud and fear-based, that it's important to come back to yourself. Remember why you came here. To come back to love. Yeah. To not get distracted by the noise, and to know that Creator's got this. And that we're so much more incredibly loved and supported than what we could ever imagine. And that everything's going to be fine.
That is beautiful. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Go ahead and give us like any final thoughts you have, and anything you want to plug. Like, we've already talked about your website. If you want to say anything else about your albums, or just anything that might be coming up for you. Well,
I do have social media. I'm not a giant social media person though. I only have it because venues these days want you to be able to have a Facebook page, like to make a Facebook event. Like before that, I just hadn't had social media for years, and I was like, oh God, like I cried because I was like, I don't want to be on my phone. I'm not good with technology.
I love it though. That's we should all be a little more like that.
Oh, I could shoot my phone's been on silent for 6 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't have a computer or anything, but I do have Instagram. Like I have Instagram and I have like a public Facebook page, but I honestly, like I forget to use these things.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be doing, like, now that things are opening back up again, I've started doing like live group sound healing stuff, like in real life, not online, because we haven't figured out how to do the sound folds yet without compromising the integrity of the sound. And I'm really specific about wanting the vibration to be right. But yeah, you could like check my website or things like that to see what we're up to. I'm not sure what else to say.
I think we probably learned from the beginning that you were not going to be the greatest at plugging yourself. And that's okay. We can do it for you.
I finally put some things on YouTube though, so there's some like a couple of things on YouTube.
Well, good for you, branching out a little bit, but don't go too far and be crazy like the rest of us, because you're in a good place, staying silent on all of these social media.
If I am on there, it's just like a photo of like me like bushwalking. Like I mainly just any chance that I can get, I'm just alone in nature. Like I love just walking by myself with Ivy.
Yeah. Well, it is an honor to talk to you, and I want to thank you. Oh my gosh, your energy is so beautiful, and the fact that you are sharing it with us and being brave and stepping out there even more and doing another show and being candid and sharing some personal experiences with us. I appreciate it, and from everybody listening, I want to thank you too. So I just know that everybody is going to love it. So you rock.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And it's been so nice to meet you too. You're so easy to speak to and so funny. Sorry if I've just laughed over everything.
Oh, there are plenty of episodes with me giggling and laughing. So that's totally fine. In the show notes for this episode, you'll find helpful information and resources for mental health, substance abuse, and addiction, particularly if you live in the United States. But here's a big one. For the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org or call 1-800-273-8255. For the crisis text line, text HOME to 741-741 for free 24/7 crisis counseling. Thank you to the following super Paranerds who support the show at patreon.com/Big Seance. Daryl, James Deacon, Melissa Armour, Anne Marie Sullivan, Justin J. Justin, Genesis, Natalie, Kim Robb, Jim Budd, Josiel Lorenzo, Susan Davey, Paula Mitchell, and Amy Park Gedicke. My supporters at the Parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/Parlor guests, are Linda of shimmeringmoons.com, Anne Rekovich of ozparatech.com, Rochelle Fops, Christine Ferrens, Mindy Kentop, Hope Battaglia, Cassie Keller, Diane Rax, Nettie, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Peggy Hagen, Bruce Williams, Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, David Rubenstein, and Norman and Linda Keller. That sound you just heard was the above and beyond. There's not even a category for your level of support fireworks display, because I have 5 awesome listeners who support the show at the $10 level. Glenna Becker, Steve Skinner, Kevin Gilbert, AJ Meredith, and James Wilfong. So thank you, Glenna, Steve, Kevin, AJ, and James. And thank you, Paranerds. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. And you can continue the discussion and hang out with a great community of Paranerds by joining us in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. Want to hear your voice in a future episode? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time. And now, as I promised, from her new album named Lucent, this is Valli Maine singing Essence, which is channeled. Enjoy.
To